Coming up today on the Leipzig Loko, we look to keep ourselves in the Europa League qualifying position in a clash against Freiburg, and then off the back of that, it's a derby as we take on Dynamo Dresden. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 93 of the Leipzig Loko with Lokomotive Leipzig here on Sean Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today, it is two Bundesliga games. We take on Freiburg in a 6 versus 5th clash at home, and off the back of that, we travel away to take on Dynamo Dresden, and I believe it is the Sachsen Derby. That one could get just a little bit spicy, so looking forward to those two games coming up in today's episode. Then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But off the back of yesterday's episode, where we did go back to a Gegenpress, if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it top right corner. We did pick up a win in the Europa League over Luzern, as you can see, and before then picked up a draw at home against Borussia Dortmund. Off the back of that, we have played one game, and it did actually result in us changing one of our player roles just a little bit. We picked up a win though, 2-1 over Mainz. You'll see the reason for that change in player role pretty shortly, but thankfully got off to a decent start here. At the 13-minute mark, Matthias Tell wins that, and Nicolo Amadori with a good header, as we know he can do, finally back in the goals and puts us 1-0 up. But here, looked like we should deal with this danger, but Hurtado takes too long on the ball to be fair. Not too sure if we can blame that too much on a player role, but it was a frustrating equaliser. But thankfully, with only 6 minutes left in the game, Ryan, nice loop ball over the top there for Tunde Moose. A good save there from Muller, but Mikel Mastis is there to follow up and bash that one home. So we do pick up a 2-1 win, and based on stats, it's fair to say that that was pretty well deserved as well, even though it was away from home. So going into today's episode, we find ourselves in 6th on the Bundesliga table, about to take on Freiburg, both teams joint on the same amount of points. We are 7 points off the league leaders in Bayern Munich, but also 4 points behind Borussia Dortmund in that last Champions League qualifying spot at the moment. So winning this first game in today's episode would be quite good, and based on the table positions, you'd expect us to get the job done in that derby, even though it is away from home, with Dynamo Dresden being all the way down in 17th. But the slight change in player roles that we have made to our Gegenpress tactic off the back of going back to it heading in to yesterday's episode, we've put both our centre-backs now as central defenders. We were using that a couple of seasons ago, back when we had a fluid counter-attacking style, I believe it was, here at Lokomotive Leipzig, before we did switch to the Gegenpress. Off the back of that, we have one ball-playing defender and one central defender. But I think maybe two central defenders might be the way to go. Those centre-backs aren't the greatest in terms of passing, even though that is an area we have tried to recruit them for as ball-playing defenders. Just a little bit error-prone, and the average ratings, in particular Hurtado, has not been that great this season. These two quite high-potential centre-backs, we want them to be playing together a lot over the course of the remainder of this save. So for this upcoming game where we take on Freiburg, we'll try both of them out as central defenders instead of ball-playing defenders. So it does mean now our back four are on different roles than what they were when we had this tactic at the start of the season. Now it's fullbacks instead of wingbacks and central defenders instead of ball-playing defenders, but hopefully that just shores things up at the back and make sure we can continue what has been, despite the fact we've been a little bit patchy in all competitions, a good run of recent form in the Bundesliga. And first up, a big game, 5th versus 6th, as we do take on Freiburg. They come into this one in some okay form. Just recently, they've picked up wins in the Europa League over Sarajevo and also over Stuttgart in the Bundesliga, but most recently, a 3-0 loss to Fortuna Düsseldorf. And with this one being at home, hopefully we can make it 2 losses in a row and jump above these guys into 5th spot on that Bundesliga table. In terms of team selection going into this first game of today's episode, Leroy Sané is still out with broken ribs, albeit these days is on his rehab program. Should be back when we get back for tomorrow's episode off the back of the winter break. Also, unfortunately, Sebastian Escobar is still away on his holiday, so a couple of players missing, but hopefully still have enough about us here to pick up a good result. So obviously with those unavailabilities, it does mean that we do have Baker at DLP, and also we've got Mastis out on the right wing. Also, both our centre-backs are the rotated ones, because at the moment, Osvaldo as well as Hurtado, unfortunately, are quite injury-prone on a heavy workload. So we'll give the backups in Alte and Camillo some game time in this clash with Freiburg. Hopefully that doesn't prove too costly. So a little bit of change there for players who usually would not be in our first rotation, some of that through injury and holiday, and some of it through just trying to make sure we don't pick up too many more injuries, but hopefully we can still pick up a decent result here and jump above these guys on the Bundesliga table. As you can see, our form has picked up off the back of going back to that Gegenpress 3 wins and that draw against Borussia Dortmund. There we are with our 4-2-3-1, and Freiburg, they are going with a 4-4-2. Gran Kuhl on the right wing, interesting. Also Viper, the striker, he has been quite dangerous against us in the past. Freiburg are in the all red, wearing a traditional home uniform, the yellow with the blue shorts, and the first highlight here is in our favour. Only a couple of minutes in, we pump that one deep, and Amadori actually does quite well to win that one in the air. Does so again, and now Mastis on the overlap. What can he do? Tight angle, does get a shot off, but unfortunately drags that one well wide. But some good early work there from Amadori. He's starting to find some form off the back of a bit of a poor start to the season. Hopefully he can score a few more goals, because that has definitely been an area we've struggled in so far this season. Goals through all of our strikers. Hopefully Amadori off the back of that one in that game against Mainz can pick up another one here. We just encouraged there at the wrong time, so unfortunately just the one highlight so far, and it is still locked up at 0-0, coming up to about halfway through this first half, as Justin Blomé picks up a yellow card as per usual in that ball-winning midfielder role. So that probably means that Manuel comes on at half-time. Now a free kick here to Freiburg, but thankfully that one not too threatening. It loops over the bar, and also I think quite a few of their players there might have even been offside when that free kick did get taken, albeit the bloke that got his heel on the end of it might not have been. And about 10 minutes shy of half-time, we have a thrown down that right-hand side, and it is Sicker who puts that one into the mixer. Thankfully, we just do enough there to keep that ball. Now Baker, Amadori, nice ball up there to Mastis. Matthias Taylor does get in behind. It's a big chance there, one-on-one with the goalkeeper, but unfortunately drags that one wide, and that was a much better chance than we created earlier through Mastis. But so far it feels like we've the best two chances in this game, but still locked up at 0-0. We'll just zoom out so the commentary's not quite in the way of the action so much. But now Baker on the ball again, plays that one to Blomier. Now Mastis, there's some people available on that right-hand side outside him, but this time Blomier makes his way forward and tries to get us on the attack. Just loses out on position there, but thankfully he's enough of a pest to get it back for us, and he's on the ball here. Plays that one back to Baker, just being a bit tightly marked there down that far side, but eventually starting to find a bit of space. Now Baker floats this one into the mixer for Amadori. That's the exact chance we want to create with him being so good in the air, but unfortunately that one misses a target, as every single shot in this game has done so far, and it is still 0-0. We look like the slightly more threatening team with more shots and a higher XG, but neither team getting a shot on target obviously means this game has not been up to too much so far. We're going to make a few changes at halftime. Sicker's struggling on a 6.5. We'll bring on Jan Horvath in his place, and obviously Manuel comes on for the yellow card of Blomier, but hopefully we can continue to play the way that we are, because it feels like we are just slightly in the ascendancy, albeit the first highlight of the second half is a free kick in favour of Freiburg. They try and put this one into the box. It's a little bit messy, ends up being a decent chance there. I think that was for Eaglestein, but thankfully his header also misses a target so far. No shots on target, hard to score goals when that is the case, but off the back of that chance to Freiburg, nice ball played for there, and Zoran might be able to get us on the attack, albeit again Eaglestein is able to be a bit of a pest. And now big chance here for Freiburg on the counter-attack. Cole squares that one very nicely for Mbengwe, but thankfully his shot very weak, straight into the arms of San Jose. The first shot on target, not a very good one, but lots of action here early in the second half. Horvath actually is a pretty good long throw on him, wasn't expecting that, but unfortunately doesn't link up with any of our players. It's a chance here for Freiburg again to do something. Balde down this left-hand side, looking quite threatening, plays that one back to Martinelli, I think that was. Now the player who had the big chance before, and Mbengwe on the ball, but good tackle that time from Manuel, and now Tell finds Amadori back out to Matthias Tell. Lots of bodies here. Can we find that man on the right-hand side? We don't need to. We find Zoran, who pumps that one home. Hopefully, he stayed onside, because it was a pretty close call, that one. I thought Mastis was a player that we would find with that ball, but thankfully he was onside, and the goal will count, and we eventually take a 1-0 lead. Mastis and a ton of space there on that right-hand side, but thankfully Zoran, I suppose, a much better angle, straight in front of goal, puts that one away in that top corner, and we eventually take a 1-0 lead with apparently the first shot on target in the game. Not too sure how that one before to Freiburg has not counted, but off the back of that, it's a corner in our favour. We go far post. It's a bang-bang double, and Nicolo Amadori, as we like him to do, scoring from a set piece, that far post corner, like he scored from against Luzern in yesterday's episode, I think it was, and he puts that one away and makes it 2-0. In fact, I think the goal might have been in the Borussia Dortmund game. The Luzern game had some interesting goals, to say the least, but a couple of players now are down to red hearts. We're going to bring on Vochin in the deep-lying playmaker role. We've got him there at the moment, of course, with Escobar being away on holiday. Also, Danny Hummel can come on for Mastis. He is a player who can get quite injury-prone and is down to that red heart. But a quick-fire double there does mean we are now 2-0 in front and might be making our way up to 5th on the Bundesliga table. They try and play a ball over the top there for Viper to Freiburg, but thankfully San Jose can claim that one. Now Alte, who is on a yellow card, plays that one out to Camillo Nautel. We find a nice ball there from Billy, and he starts to make his way down that left-hand side, but unfortunately, bit of a loose touch, and Freiburg get a chance to get back on the attack. I think a few earlier strikers there were offside, though. We can deal with that danger. Now, Amadori, from just outside the box, he finds Jan Horvath. Good chance here from a tight angle, but unfortunately, that shot does take a big deflection from Martinelli, but it does mean another chance for us here to do something from a set piece. Zora might again be looking for Amadori, this time the near post, but unfortunately his header is off target, and it remains 2-0, and off the back of that, I think we'll play things safe and take off Alte on that yellow card with our last substitution for Osvaldo, with around about 20 minutes left, so there'll be all our subs used, but this should be a game now that we are capable of winning with that 2-0 lead, and there is a highlight off the back of that substitution. Amadori tracking back quite a way there to win that ball for us in the air. Hopefully he makes his way forward eventually. There he is, dropping very deep as a pressing forward. That would appear to be something I'd expect more from a deep-lying forward, but we are still on the attack here. Tell with a nice ball for Zoran. It's a massive chance, but unfortunately can't quite pick up a double. That one goes just wide, but it looks like we're more likely to score a third goal here than Freiburg are to grab one back. Hopefully that's the case. Now Manuel, nice ball over the top this time for Danny Hummel, off of the bench, tries to square that one for Zordan, finds Matthias Tullet, eventually makes its way to Nicolo Amadori, who will pick up a double. Looks like now he's back in some serious goal-scoring touch, and that could help us out a lot. As I said earlier, that has been one of the bigger problems this season at Lokomotive Leipzig. Our strikers are struggling to score goals. That's a bit fortunate. Hummel's cross, that got a deflection. It's Pinball City out there. There's lots of deflections in the build-up to that goal, but Amadori eventually puts that one away, makes it 3-0. We've had 3 shots on target in this game, and all of them have found their way into the back of the net. A very high XG though with those chances, 16 shots overall, but it looks like we're going to pick up a 3-0 win, albeit as I say that, there is a corner here for Freiburg with 5 minutes left. They take a bit of time over it, look to go near post. Viper plays that one back out to Eaglestein, goes out there to someone on the edge of the box. Decent chance there, but he just puts that one over that top left corner. Not too big of a chance, thankfully, but they are getting some decent XG from this game, but thankfully we've had a lot more. They've had no shots on target, which makes our job very, very easy, and we pick up a big 3-0 win there over Freiburg. I think the Gegen press with those slight changes definitely doing the job. Also, both centre-backs with some pretty good ratings as well, so that is encouraging, especially as we start that one with our backup rotation in Camillo as well as Alte, but that was a pretty good performance. A little bit disappointed with only 5 shots on target, but thankfully we made most of those count and put the first 3 of those away, and we pick up in the end a pretty comprehensive 3-0 win there at home over Freiburg. Keep up a nice patch of form in the Bundesliga, and as you can see, that moves us up to 5th on the table, and hopefully we can continue to climb as we take on Dynamo Dresden next up. So a very good win in that first game of today's episode. Good to see Nicolo Amadori back in goal-scoring touch in between the games that we are playing before we take on Dynamo Dresden in a derby. We have had a youth intake preview. Don't expect much on this later in the season. As you can see, it's expected to only be average. Goalkeepers and attacking midfielders might be our best area, and even then, that's not saying too much with C rating. So our youth intake here this season might be a bit of a stinker, but next up we do take on Dynamo Dresden, and this does look like a very winnable game before the winter break. To be fair, most of them now should be quite winnable for us, taking on 3 teams in the Bundesliga who are down in the bottom half of the table, and also someone in the Europa League that you'd imagine would be beaten. We just came back really because that Freiburg game was definitely the toughest one that we did have before we do hit that break. But this is a derby as well, as we take on Dynamo Dresden in the Sachsen Derby. So it's not the Szechuan Derby, got that one mixed up. To be fair, it has been just a little while since we have last taken on Dynamo Dresden, but with these guys being all the way down in 17th on the Bundesliga table, you'd hope this is a game that we can win, even though it is away from home. The recent form, they did beat Cologne 4-back, but around that, draws against Hamburg and Stuttgart, but also losses to Wolfsburg and Fortuna Düsseldorf. So to be fair, not in that bad a form, but still, with that table position, this is a team you'd expect us to be beaten. They only came up to the Bundesliga last season after finishing second in the two Bundesliga, so it's a newly promoted team. Hopefully we can pick up a result and keep ourselves in one of those Europa League qualifying spots, and also we might actually get a chance here to sneak into a Champions League spot, albeit that will be dependent on what happens later on this match day, as Borussia Dortmund are playing and are going to have 2 games in hand on us as well. But hopefully we can pick up a win here and sneak ourselves for the moment into a Champions League qualifying spot. We have made a couple of changes to our team heading into this game. Obviously, this is a game that we should really be winning, so I feel like there's a chance here to give some players a rest. It does still mean we're going to be playing our backup centre-back partnership, and also Votchin and Ryan will be at wing-back. Also, thankfully, Sebastian Escobar is finally back from his holiday, so he comes in the DLP role, and also Danny Hummel will start over Mastis, who is at the moment quite injury-prone, as we pointed out when we took him off in that previous game. But this should be a game, even though it is away from home, as I've said a couple of times, that we can pick up 3 points from, especially off the back of that very good 3-0 win over Freiburg. As you can see, our recent form down the Bundesliga is very strong. 4 wins from our last 5, only broken up by that draw yesterday against Borussia Dortmund, but we somehow found a way, despite all our tactical switching of late, to do pretty well in the Bundesliga. It was just the cup competitions where we were struggling, but it feels like now, going back to the Gegenpress with that slightly lower tempo and also a couple of different roles for our defenders, we've picked up our form nicely and starting to get on a bit more of a roll. And Dynamo Dresden are the home team. They will be in the deep yellow today. We are going to be in the grey with the yellow shorts there. Karl Votchin picks up an early yellow card. Not really ideal. We'll see what happens to him come half-time. Maybe Sicker will get some game time in the second half of this one. But coming up to the 20-minute mark, and so far this has actually been a little bit disappointing. We're just slightly on the front foot, but only 2 shots, both on target, but not a great deal of XG. Dynamo Dresden actually nearly matching that, despite the fact they've only had 1 shot, but a very quiet game so far. Just that yellow card to Karl Votchin as we go past the half-hour mark. This will be disappointing, because as I said, this should be a game that we can pick up 3 points from. The first hole eventually is in favour of the home team in the yellow and black. They play that one back to one of their centre-backs, try and loop that one over the top, but thankfully Votchin does head that one forward, albeit they are back in position off the back of that and do start to cut inside. Vol here with a shot. It takes a big deflection, finds its way there to Torcello, but thankfully it's a big loop ball which San Jose can collect quite safely. Not much of a big chance there from that first highlight that we do see, and we're getting quite late now into this first half, actually being quite an even game stats-wise, and Dynamo Dresden are on the front foot based on XG, so it's been a bit of a disappointing one so far this, and it is still 0-0 in the Sachsen Derby. Going to make a few changes here at half-time. We've got Votchin and Blomier on a yellow card, so Sicker and Manuel will come on for them. And we might also consider here taking off Danny Hummel, just checking here which player is the most injury prone on our bench, and it is Mikel Mastis. We're going to bring on Musa for Danny Hummel, and Matthias Tell can switch out to that right wing. If we continue to struggle to score goals, we'll probably put him onto attack at some stage, but so far not the greatest performance, especially against a team who are currently in the drop zone. So hopefully those changes do get us going a bit better in the second half. Also, we'll just make sure that Sicker is not easing off tackles after we bring him on for Votchin, who was on that yellow card. We are just slightly on the front foot in terms of the shots and shots on target, but that XG is still a little bit low, albeit as I say that, we do get a decent chance and start to get on the front foot a little bit more, but still nothing of note happening in this game. Coming up to the hour mark, it doesn't look like we need to take anyone off at this stage, so I think we'll just leave things as they are for this last half hour, albeit we'll chuck Matthias Tell onto attack. As I said, that might just get us on the front foot a bit more, and obviously, as he usually plays, on that left-hand side. That is the role that he is more used to. We do have a throw in here, though, inside the final third. Tunde Musa makes his way into the final third, but unfortunately can't quite link up with, I think that was Altay there. But we are still on the attack as Camillo picks out Ryan down that left-hand side. Escobar, nice ball there for Tunde Musa, but unfortunately it's just a bit too deep for him. Can't quite get on the end of it. And now Dunn has this one for Dynamo Dresden. Takes his time on it, and this highlight is going to continue. They pump that one deep. Altay, there's been a collision there. The Dynamo Dresden player has gone down like a sack of spuds. Apparently, there was an elbow in that, and it is a straight red card to Faliu Altay. And this is going to mean we have to make some changes to hopefully just get something from this game. Also, Matthias Tell now is down to a red heart, so it's going to be our last two subs here that we are going to use. We're going to bring on Osvaldo for Zorlan and play without a cam for the last 20 or so minutes of this game. And also Mustis can come on for Tell, even though he is a bit injury prone. So as I said, it does mean no cam for the last 20 or so minutes of this game. Also, we'll just put Mustis back onto support, but this could make things interesting in this derby. A bit of a heated moment there. Faliu Altay thought it was a cage fight and delivered a big spinning elbow there and gets sent from the field. Now making our way into the last 10 minutes. It is still 0-0. I think we might just take a risk here and put a few more players on some slightly more positive duty. So both our midfielders on support, both our wingers on attack, and also both our fullbacks on attack. We'll go a bit higher with the tempo and also go a bit wider with our attack and also distribute quickly from our goalkeeper to see if we can get any highlights late in this game. But so far it's fair to say this one has been a bit of a dub, but that red card for Faliu Altay actually means the point from this game won't be too bad. We'll go attacking as we're going to make our way into 3 minutes of added time. We've actually still come up with more shots in this game and a higher XG, but unfortunately that one was a bit of a dud, albeit our defence actually played quite well with those new roles. We actually played quite well overall, but unfortunately couldn't put the ball in the back of net. We'll tell the guys we're disappointed with that, albeit, as I said, with that red card for about the last 20 or so minutes, that definitely could have gone a lot worse. Thankfully, it is not a loss with that edited gegenpress style that we are using, but that's a bit of a disappointing result second up in today's episode, but thankfully we are going to stay in a Europa League qualifying spot for now. Freiburg won't be able to jump above us, so we're going to stay in 5th spot come the end of this match day. But as I said, disappointing result there despite the red card. It's a 0-0 draw in the derby against Dynamo Dresden. So a bit of a disappointing result there in that second game of today's episode, albeit that red card did change things just a little bit late on. He could be in a bit of trouble off the back of that. I think there's going to be a decent chance that that ban might actually go beyond the one game, because as you can see, he is going to have to face a disciplinary committee, and for that big spinning elbow straight out of a cage fight, I dare say he might be in a bit of trouble there, Altay, and might not play again in the Bundesliga until we come back from the winter break. But that first game today, that win over Freiburg, does mean we are in a pretty good position on that Bundesliga table, qualifying for the Europa League again, this time through league position, only behind Borussia Dortmund on goal differential, albeit they do have 2 games in hand on us, so it does feel like at the moment they're a little way off getting in to a Champions League qualifying spot, but we're doing a little bit better than we were this time last season in a European qualifying spot. Hopefully we can stay there, especially without having to worry about quite as much fixture congestion this season, with us already being out of the DFB Pokal. But that will do it for today's episode. 2 games before we do head in to the winter break. A big win over Freiburg and a slightly disappointing draw 0-0 at Dynamo Dresden. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. Come back tomorrow off the back of the winter break. In between now and then, a very winnable game in the Europa League as we take on Lokomotive Leipzig. They are from Bulgaria. That is a team we should definitely be beating, I'd like to think, with only 3-star reputation. Hopefully that solidifies us inside that top 24, and off the back of that, we take on bottom of the league Hertha Berlin and Werder Bremen in 14th. I'd like to think on recent form, despite that most recent result against Dynamo Dresden, those are 2 pretty winnable games as well, so we should continue a good run of form going into tomorrow's episode, and we'll come back and take on both Borussia Mönchengladbach and Bayern Munich, hopefully can pick up some decent results there, albeit those are two teams who are currently also in the European fight this season, so they could be a couple of games where we could slip up, and also if we do anything in the transfer market, we'll update you guys on that as it does open come the start of January, albeit not too much in our transfer budget, 1.97 million, and not too much extra in the wage budget as well, but we'll see if any teams come sniffing around for our players here at Lokomotive Leipzig. We'll come back tomorrow off the back of the winter break, hopefully in a good patch of form, and take on Gladbach and Bayern Munich. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.
Thought I could do this, laugh through the sadness. Don't know